So I'm Mike Godeker from the Silver Crow Method, Social Network Shaman, and Silver Crow Apothecary, and I am here with
Melanie Ray.
right. And today we're going to talk about the convergence of timelines, or just timelines in general, old timelines past, going into the present, and also into the future, what we're meant to do. So when we start off this about this, there are moments in our life where we discover that the path that we were on before, for some reason or another, no longer fits us,
Mm-hmm.
where there's like a different version of us that we once needed, and we, for some reason or another,
Yes.
that begins to dissolve, right? Or it changes,
Yes.
not because it was
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but because what we say, the medicine, has already been learned, or the things that we
Mm-hmm.
need to learn about that path have already been integrated. So when we talk about this in shamanic traditions, time isn't viewed as a straight line. It's viewed as movements, cycles, spirals, and what we call pathways of becoming. So
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about that, sometimes we arrive at what I call a convergence of timelines. Sometimes we arrive at what I call a convergence of timelines or paths or whatever we want to call these things. You can look at it as a sacred crossroad where you have different
Mm.
directions that you can choose. You're coming from one direction and you need to choose, am I going to go left or right or straight ahead?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't go backward, right? And that's when something in us
Right.
is quietly asking us to choose to step forward on a new path.
Mm.
So when we speak about those timelines in regards to the Silver Crow method, we're not talking about fantasy or escaping reality. We're talking about a few different things here. So we're talking about spirit, we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about all those behaviors, decisions, the nervous system patterns, and everything else in that spiritual direction that we have in our life. And when we're on that one path, we start to learn these things, we start to process these things, we start to digest the medicine, and we start to learn the lessons that we're meant to learn. Or, for instance, if we're in a cycle that keeps on going back and forth, we don't learn the lesson. I think in one of the
Mm-hmm.
podcasts, we talked about how life is in circles. So
Yeah.
when we're stuck in that circle and we don't learn the lesson and don't integrate the medicine, we keep on going back until we learn that. So when we have that one path that we're coming from, also remember that there's cycles that take us sometimes longer to learn, and some people never learn.
Mm-hmm.
So when we do that, then we get to that crossroads, and then it's a question
Mm-hmm.
of, okay, you've learned the medicine, you've done the shadow work, you've done the integration work, and now it's, are you going to stay here, or are you going to move into the next phase of your development, of your ascension, of your learning, of your being, your spiritual path?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So
Yes. Well, hopefully we do move forward and we do not stay. And there are many reasons why we stay and don't move forward.
right.
And it's because of all of the things that are relative to our lives up to that point are still surrounding us,
Right.
relationships, situations, all of it.
Right. So every choice that we make, every wound that we carry, every agreement that we hold inside ourselves, that creates that momentum.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have these agreements and we do the shadow integration work and the journey work, we get to start to unpack those agreements. And every time we get one of these agreements done, then it propels us forward. It gives us that momentum to go on the path that we are meant to go on. So we break out of that cycle. We basically collapse that agreement, the patterns, the cords, and everything associated with that. And it sets energy free that enables us to go into the next path of the furtherment of our development. So, and when we're doing that, the different agreements that are blocking us from moving forward, they suddenly release. We have the positive new agreements that give us the space to move forward. And then we have that
Mm-hmm.
momentum. And that momentum shapes the road that we walk on, right?
Right.
So, yeah,
Sometimes we feel like at some point during our day, we could have something that happens. It could be going through and cleaning up a space. It could be, having a conversation with someone, or it could just be taking a walk outside in the woods or wherever, where we feel like we have just shifted frequencies or energy and stepped into a new timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, and you get that. I mean, after you do the integration, so, for instance, someone who's living in fear or exhaustion or hypervigilance and survival may continue walking a timeline that's built into those states. Once we resolve those things, and the moment awareness enters, the moment that we begin to reclaim our sovereignty by collapsing those agreements, those patterns, those blocks in the nervous system, and the choices that we make, then we open up a new path. So, from the shamanic perspective of journey work and medicine, all of these things that we're doing, these agreements, these cords, these blocks, these intrusions, etc., and getting back the spirit parts, that's an
Mhm.
entire process that goes on for the rest of our lives so that we can continue going on the path that we're meant to be on. Whether it's with a specific person, whether it's in a specific location, whether it's doing a specific thing, all of these things that we've carried from the past that have kept us in there or blocked us or um, basically have pulled us back or stopped us from moving forward. These things get resolved, and then we open up that energy in that space, and then the road becomes clear. We can take the next steps forward. So think of it.
Mhm.
Another way of thinking about this is you're in a snowstorm walking up a mountain. I mean, I would advise that, but you everything
Are
else.
there are shoes optional?
No, you need shoes. Well, in a snowstorm, you can't walk without shoes. Yeah. So,
It's a joke.
so yeah, I know.
Like how difficult do you want to make it?
Yeah, so you're walking up a mountain and it's starting to snow. And once it starts snowing, you have these whiteout events where you have a compass and you know the route that you're going on and you see one step in front of you. A lot of that is when we're dealing with agreements and everything in life, like the trauma, the abuse, and everything else, it clouds your view and it keeps you stuck in a specific area.
Hmm.
So because you have that fear or that uncertainty or something else, you're like, well, I can't take the next step forward. But if you don't
Hmm.
take the next step forward, you won't go up the mountain. And if you don't go up the mountain, in this case, in an extreme situation, you'll die. So you either have to go down or you go up. You reach the next camp and you prepare. You have your food and everything else, and you sit for the night and then survive. Or you decide to go back down again, and that could also be just as bad because if you're going back down the route and you can't see anymore, that's going to be the same amount of work. So in a lot of different ways, more often than not, going forward is the best idea because typically that camp is going to be there much faster than where you left, depending on how long you've been climbing the mountain. And the second thing is when you're in that snowstorm, you have to trust yourself that you take one step after another. And after you've taken these 50 steps, you'll make it to camp. But when you're in there, when you're doing those steps, it's like, oh my God, how much further is it? Is it going to take 50 steps? Is it going to take 1,000 steps? Am I going to make it? And once you start giving yourself the confidence and the training, you will understand that, okay, I know where I'm going and I know this is direction. Here's the compass and I know where the camp is. I'm going to keep on going. I've been walking this long. It's only going to take a short amount of time and then I'm there. So that's kind of like the feeling that you get because once you get rid of these agreements and you put new positive agreements in place, it gives you the ability to step forward the next stop on your timeline. And once you've done enough of that shadow work, that integration work, you're ready at the crossroads where you can go left or right. And then you can finally
Hmm.
decide, you take that sovereignty back and you can make those decisions, right?
Yes. Sometimes timelines almost kind of sneak up on us,
Mm,
right? And it can almost feel like a smack from the universe, like a wake up, like, okay, here we go. We're on this timeline.
mm,
Um, or sometimes, we can be like consciously working towards that timeline. Um, and sometimes it just feels like it keeps getting further out and further out.
right. So there are times when you have a feeling that you need to step forward, and there are times when you're stuck in a path where you don't get that feeling.
Hmm.
I think sometimes it's like physics. Once you get that critical momentum, you start to see that and you start to get those signals. When you're stuck, whatever the reason is, if it's, for instance, we talked about manipulative people, we talked about different situations. If you're stuck because someone doesn't want you to leave, then
Hmm.
depending on how stuck you are, you might not be able to see that unless there's some event that happens where you wake up, your
Hmm.
awareness sees what's going on, and then you start taking those steps away from that past and you go to the future, right?
Right.
So that's whether in an abusive relationship, that's when you're suffering trauma. And at some point, your nervous system and your spirit is saying, okay, well, listen, I've gone through this long enough. This cycle is now over. I need to do a change. I have to change because this is not what I'm meant to do. And then it can happen all like very compressed, like 5 or 6 steps happen within a short amount of time, right?
Hmm.
So everybody's
Yes.
timeline is different. Everybody's progression to the timeline is different. But there's also one of the hardest spiritual truths in all of this, like when we're ending the old pattern.
Hmm.
So sometimes when we're walking on that and we're integrating the medicine, the old timeline has to collapse before the new one can emerge.
Yeah.
And that's when it gets really tough because that's about,
Yes.
it's about relationships, it's about
Yeah.
careers, it's about
Hmm.
identities, it's about burnout.
Yes, the identity part. Yep.
Yeah. It's about spiritual awakening.
Hmm.
It's about feeling that you're in between worlds or situations. And it's also grief for the old self.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because we don't want to do new things because stepping into a new stage or a timeline or something else, it's uncomfortable because we go outside of our comfort zone.
Hmm.
And we're comfort animals. We like to be in the comfort zone. We don't like things that are outside of our comfort zone. We want to feel safe and we want to feel secure and everything else. And sometimes
Hmm.
the only way to move forward is to go outside that comfort zone and to take that next step. So,
Yeah, that's pretty big.
yeah. And when we think about that, the old path protects us that way
Yes, it does.
because we have these agreements or these survival patterns that keep us in place and stuck.
Hmm.
And from our nervous system's perspective, they were intelligent responses to pain, to chaos, to fear, abandonment, or uncertainty. But when we go through these things, like we've gone through the cord cutting events with a lot of different people, and we see this all the time when we work with people,
Yes. Hmm.
eventually that survival stops being the medicine and it starts becoming the limitation or the stuckness,
Yeah.
right? So those agreements, those patterns, those core, the old nervous system conditioning, the emotional armor that we put up, those patterns, those blocks, the nervous system can become loyal to that suffering simply because the suffering is something that we're familiar with. It makes us
Yeah.
secure, but it's not the right path for us.
So I was thinking of it like not, I know it's extreme, like Stockholm syndrome, where
Yeah,
people will keep going back. Well, you know, someone who has someone captive, they don't even have to lock the door anymore because there's just this weird, I don't know what it is, psychological thing that the captor is able to keep the person without them, you know, having to lock the door or put cuffs on them. They just
yeah,
stay with the person that's abusing them and keeping them captive.
yeah,
So, I mean, what you're talking about is not extreme like that, but it's like, it's a little bit along that lines.
yeah. So remember we said that when
Mm.
we did cord cutting that the nervous system wants to protect us against more pain and situations. So, but sometimes that's also part of the enemy of us taking the next step in our timeline. If we get stuck in there and we don't resolve the agreements, we don't move forward. If we don't move forward, we're not on the path that we're supposed to be on. So then at some point, there's that spiritual sense of us is saying, well, I'm looking for something, I'm hurting, and this doesn't really feel good to me, and there's something that has to change. And
Mhm.
you have your nervous system on one hand, the psychological aspect, and then you have the spiritual one, your consciousness and yourself. And they're like
Mhm.
fighting with each other. The one wants to keep you
Yes.
comfortable. The other one's like, well, you can't stay comfortable anymore because you have to move forward. This is not where you're meant to be.
Yes.
And that feeling grows and grows and grows and gets more painful until you reach the stage where you're like, I have to change something. This is not what's meant to
Mm-hmm.
happen. I'm unhappy, or I'm not getting the fulfillment, or doesn't feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing, or whatever that feeling is. So then that's when you start to integrate with those agreements the lessons from heartbreak, the resilience from hardship that we've built,
Mm-hmm.
humility from failure, or I've failed, or I've done this, or I've done that. And you
Mm-hmm.
start to integrate that and say, well, this is not a failure. You learned something. You were meant to learn it. Or the
Mm-hmm.
boundaries from betrayal, or compassion from all the grief that we've went through, and also the strength from survival. And when we talk about the past, it's very important in order to integrate the medicine that we don't erase the past. The goal is not to erase the past and forget everything, it's to integrate the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
and it always depends on, whatever else is part of that timeline, if it's a person or something else. I mean, if they act in a respectful manner, in a way that is not harmful, then that makes that easier. If it's not, then sometimes it is the point where you cut those cords completely and you move on to protect yourself, right? And that happens too, more often than it doesn't. So,
Mm-hmm.
but in an ideal situation, we honor the old timeline, regardless of those people, not because we want to stay there, but because it shaped the wisdom and the medicine that we're now carrying forward for this path.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the Silver Crow methodology that I teach is that we do not carry the wound into the next timeline. We carry the medicine the wound revealed.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's gold.
Maybe, I guess, yeah.
It
There's
is,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean,
for
there's
sure.
yeah, there's moments when you feel that it's now time to integrate that. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a really powerful thing, because medicine shows us a lot of different things, the lessons that we've learned. What could I have done differently, or what are my patterns that I need to get rid of, or what did I accept from someone else, or how did I surrender my sovereignty to someone else by accepting whatever it is that they said or they did, or the situation. Or you
Mm-hmm.
stay in a situation and you believe that you have to be the honorable person, or you have to be the martyr in this case, and you always have to continuously sacrifice. But then you ask yourself the question, okay, now I'm sacrificing. How long am I supposed to sacrifice until I feel loved, or until I feel complete, or until the suffering's over? Is my life
Mm-hmm.
just only going to be suffering, or is there going to be an end to this? And is this suffering right for me, or is there something that I need to change?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
I can definitely see that.
yeah,
Even just going throughout your day, there's times where you yield to people because it's easier to protect yourself um, by staying silent about something than, having a conflict.
yeah. So you have the past, and you start to integrate the medicine. That puts you in a space between the past and the new timeline. So there's different names that we can call this. We can call this a pause. I think in shamanic perspectives, we call this the sacred pause between timelines.
Hmm.
So what this means is we're moving past the old one, and we make um, these not recommendations, but I'm looking for the English word again for this. We make these conclusions, or we come to these conclusions. We integrate the medicine from the past. And as we integrate the medicine from the past, there's a phase where you're like, well, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing now. Because it feels like in between that space of those two timelines, the old and the new, nothing really feels clear anymore, because there's so many things that you're integrating, lessons learned in phases, that introduces uncertainty. Um, you have the nervous system sometimes in the longer states of dysregulation. you start to see your old identity that you clinged onto or were clinging onto for such a long time, sometimes maybe for decades or for years, you lose that. And then the,
True.
and then the question is, well, what's my identity really?
Hmm.
Did I lose my identity in the past? And if I did, what was it? And when you go through that stage, there's also some other things that we go through, like, for instance, spiritual confusion. You're going from one path, and then your inner spiritual direction or voice is saying, well, I've been through this so long. And what's the next step? Am I really going to be doing this, or what's really supposed to be the next step? And then there's a point where you start to go inside yourself. At least that's what I felt. You take a lot of walks in nature. You do a lot of grounding. You come back to that sense of calmness and that serenity, and you start to focus on integrating the medicine, which is by no means easy. And there's tears that happen often. There's
Hmm.
pain that gets set free. A lot of that energetic work that happens, and then you have a moment of silence and not really knowing, what's the next step here? Where am I supposed to go? Until it becomes clear after that information has been processed, after your nervous system is ready for the next step. And
I think, oh, go ahead.
go ahead, you go ahead.
I was going to say, I think part of the issue too for a lot of individuals is that the identity part, a lot of it is, you know, societal, like who the people that we know think of us, how they think of us, and our family, how they think of us. So I think we get attached to that. And, it doesn't allow us or the individual to progress forward into a different identity. And to realize that we're constantly changing our identity throughout our lifetimes. I mean, just think about who we were when we were 5 to 12 to 15, 20.
Yeah.
But I think as we get older, it's harder for us to be more fluid in changing our identity.
Hmm. I think here's where the discussion comes back into authentic self and ego.
Hmm.
Remember, I think we had that discussion on one of the other podcasts, or that's part of the training that we do in the Silver Crow. And that goes into that. When we live throughout our lives, we have our authentic self, the people that we really are inside.
Hmm.
And as we go through life, we build a construction around the authentic self that protects us with agreements, with cords, and all that kind of stuff. And also the ego. So
Hmm.
the ego tries to protect us, and it builds an outer core of character that is sometimes close to the authentic self and more often way past it or very different. And that loss of identity that we feel more often, I think, is when the ego has built an entire world and multiple layers around the authentic self and we forget who we are authentically. That's when we kind of have that loss of identity, because the loss of identity is the brain reacting and saying, well, I need to cling on to this because this is what I've been for so long. But the authentic self is in the back, in the core, saying, well, but this is who I really am. And it
Hmm.
seems like you forgot who you were because you tried to fit yourself into what society wanted or what your family wanted or what
Hmm.
someone expected you to deliver. And more often than not, it's completely different, or it can be very different from what your authentic self is. And that's a lot of times when society, its expectations and who we really are meant to be, that's when they
Right.
drastically go on different aspects of the poles of right and wrong or authentic self and completely artificial. So when people say, especially when you're with someone else, to be your authentic self and try to be your authentic self, it's important so that you're in line to, what is it that I'm doing? What kind of relationship am I building? What life am I building? And, is this a good fit or not? And
Hmm.
when you integrate that medicine and you start the relationship that way, then you come back to pretty much a clean slate where you're very close to your authentic self. And the objective here is to stay as close to your objective self as possible, right?
Right. So we're talking about timelines, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on multiple timelines happening? right? And then the energy of, where you are in the moment lines up with different timelines, one over another.
Hmm. So, my personal view on multiple timelines, our life always has multiple timelines.
Hmm.
And they depend on what state we are in, spiritually, mentally, energetically. And based off of the resonance of all three of these factors and the paths that we're meant to take, you'll feel that one or two paths are more in line to you than maybe the other three are, because there's
Hmm.
multiple paths. A person always has multiple paths that they can take in life because it depends on
Hmm.
the decisions. The decisions we make are depending on all three of these being in balance with each other. Our mental,
Hmm.
our spiritual, our energetic, our authentic selves, and all the things that we've processed. So I believe if there's one path that is meant for us, one specific timeline, the way that we get closer to that timeline is by integrating those things to be clear to take the next, to accept the next timeline, and to
Right.
feel, is that timeline the right one for us or not?
Hmm. Also, the people around us, I feel, can affect the timelines that we align with as well, their energy and influence on our lives.
Everything affects the
It
timeline
can
choices we
start
make.
to bring some timelines that we want to line up with
Mm,
closer to us or further away, depending on the energy of the people that we are in relationship with, close relationship with.
right. So when we're in this middle area, it's important to understand that creator is rebuilding us and we're rebuilding ourselves. So that's a time when we focus on stillness, on breath work, on journey work, on ceremony, on being in nature, on grounding and solitude. This is part of what I call being in the cave. So when we're in the cave, if you're more of a social person, that's when it gets very difficult because you now have to integrate and become not antisocial, but you need to go inside yourself to integrate these things.
You need to hermit up.
In a way, yeah, so that you're ready for the right timeline, right?
Hmm.
So that's that, and it's just a pause. It's not punishment. It's just preparing you for the next step. And then after that is you talked about those multiple timelines. And then the question is, walking the path that we were meant to walk, and how do we find out about that?
Mm,
Yeah. So this
yes.
is an interesting one because this deals with different teachings, different philosophies. So I think I'll bring this back to my old cybersecurity experience. So some of the deepest teachings that I've learned after decades in cybersecurity is human behavior. It's research, it's spiritual work, it's healing. It's this. The path that we are meant to walk on is often the one that our soul keeps pulling us back towards. So when we have
Mm,
multiple timelines, our soul pulls us back to the one that we're meant to take, I think.
hmm. Hmm.
And
I,
what it,
I I think I agree with that. Yeah.
yeah. So when we start to listen to intuition, to repeated callings and signs and signals, synchronicities, that inner knowing and resistance versus alignment. The mind wants that certainty, but the spirit wants alignment.
Hmm.
So for choosing the path,
Alignment to what?
well, the soul keeps on whispering the same direction for years, over and over, until we finally
Hmm.
become quiet enough to listen and to hear it. So, from the Silver Curl perspective, I believe Creator does not always reveal the entire road.
Mm.
Sometimes it's only the next step. And there's different reasons for that. In shamanic healing, in being a practitioner, we learn when we do the work with agreements and cords and stuff that you can only do so much in a certain amount of time because you have to integrate all that, and it takes time. It's energy. You're moving energy from one state to another, and all those things start to open up the reality, the path that you're meant to be on, because your awareness starts to grow. You start to feel things. What's the direction? You know, And then you start to heal because that healing requires you not to reject where we came from, but to honor the old timeline, to honor the people that we once were and had to
Mm-hmm.
be.
That's so
You know,
important.
yeah, and to honor the survival that we carried, that carried us this far to the point where we're at now. I keep
Right.
on saying, I don't. I'm not. Well, I'm not. I'm not sure. If sad is the word. I'm looking for that word again. I'm not disappointed in. Well, a different word than that, but I accept the things, the pain, everything else that I had to learn because it led me to this point.
Mm-hmm.
And it allowed me in some very hard ways to face all these inner demons and that shadow work so that I would be ready to understand what is it that I really want and need, and what's the right path for me. And when you're in that life, you don't see it. You think that you already have everything, and it's you're on the right path until you start to get those signs that you don't. I think you asked another question.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't answer that question. What was the question that you answered? Asked.
I can't remember. We started
Okay.
talking about more stuff.
Okay.
Um, but we could also say that like this now moment, we can look back at in a few years and say, wow, I really
Yeah.
have grown past that moment. And I really wasn't living my most authentic self
Right.
because now I'm living my most authentic self. So we could keep saying that about every stage of our lives looking back. So it's so important to honor every stage
It is. I
because they're
mean,
all appropriate. Yeah.
trying to maintain as much as possible your authentic self is a goal that I see. And I think the question was, how do you know you're on the right path? And the way that you know that you're on the right path is that there's synchronicities. You get the
Mm,
feeling, there's different things
yes.
that show you that you're on the right timeline. You're in the right
Yes.
space. You're with the right people. You're in the right whatever it is that that's important, and the thing for you, and you'll feel that because
Hmm.
I think my view is synchronicities, and the more synchronicities that happen, you can't plan for those things. I'm sure if we talk about the scientific method of probabilities, how likely is it that a synchronicity can happen? One. How likely is it that multiple synchronicities can happen at the same time? It's impossible. At least from a quantum mechanics perspective, there's some definitions like connected to
Hmm.
the universe and stuff. But from a life path, the more synchronicities that you have that show you you're on the right path, the more likely it is that you're on those, and you'll feel that. You
Hmm.
can't fake that. These are things that happen, and they happen, and you recognize them. But synchronicities might happen to us more often than we think. It's just that when we're closed, when we don't have the medicine, we don't
Hmm.
recognize them as synchronicities, right? The other thing is once we move past the shadow work and we're in a different state, then we gravitate towards different situations, towards different people, towards different, alignments in what we view in
Yes.
life and values. And that opens us up to connect in different ways. This is getting deep.
Absolutely.
This this is really getting deep. I didn't think we would go this deep, but yeah, I'm always surprised at how
We always
deeply.
go deep.
Yeah, I'm always surprised how deep a lot of these discussions go. But I mean, that's part of the
Yeah.
message. It's that synchronicity. It's that taking it down that path. Yeah, those
Yes.
discussions, they're important because even this is creating the path forward. This
Yes,
discussion.
it is.
Hmm.
It is
Yeah,
indeed.
the river keeps
Mhm.
moving. Yeah. So when we're honoring things, what are other topics that we need to talk about? It's our ancestors and lineage, the influence of how we make decisions and where we came from, our lineage, uh,
Yes.
the old versions of ourselves, and also gratitude. Just being grateful
Hmm.
for, it sounds cheesy, but being grateful for the lessons that we learned now that we're past them. Back then, it was
Hmm.
impossible to think that because it was just painful. But now, when we're past those
Yes.
things, we can be grateful for that. We know that now.
Well,
And yeah, go
being
ahead.
in touch with the medicine and knowing that all of these things are here to grow us, so we know that that's medicine when we have growth. I think that when you're more aware of that, you are more grateful, you have more gratitude in the moment when things are difficult and
Yeah.
not lining up and going well because you know you're getting the medicine from it.
That's tough because when you're in that moment, it's painful. And to adopt that mentality, that's basically
That's gangster.
that's the shamanic practitioner way of viewing things. Okay, well,
Yeah.
you're in something that's painful. Okay, so what is the medicine in this? What is this trying to teach me about myself? What are the
Hmm.
agreements that I have that I need to get rid of? This is the way that I think, and I don't know if it's
Hmm.
normal or not. For me, it's normal. But yeah, that's that spiritual gangster type thing where you're asking yourself,
Yes.
okay, what do I need to integrate? What is this moment really telling me? And what do I need to learn to go forward? And it's not always easy, but you reach a stage when all that's done that the moment where studying the medicine has to stop and you have to start living by it.
Mm.
That's
Hmm.
just as important. So um,
Yes.
it's good to study it, but then at some point you're done studying it and now you have to live that medicine.
Applied knowledge, apply it to life every day.
Yeah, 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 and that's so important. And like now I get that feeling like things are coming in through the things that I've learned in the last year, in the last few years, all those moments and digesting all that medicine and the path that I've taken in the last few years, just doing this
Hmm.
and working with people and seeing how they react, when you
Hmm.
help them to get rid of those agreements. But then that's also the thing, we have to keep on working on those agreements because the more agreements that we resolve that hold us in place to keep us stuck, the
Yes.
faster and better we can go on the path that we're meant to
Mm.
be and to be our authentic self.
Absolutely.
Mm. What are some
Yeah.
insights that you feel that you think on your path that you think are important in this discussion, the medicines and what you've learned and how have you felt that your path that you're going on now is the right one?
The synchronicities for sure.
Mm.
Um, Dreams, like I'll have little, um, like a little memory of a dream that I've had that has taken me into the timeline I'm in right now.
Mm.
And I'll think, okay, that's weird. This is lining up with a little piece of a dream I'm remembering. So I know that I'm on the right timeline. That could also be seen as deja vu. People also call it deja vu.
Mm.
Um, Also having the medicine from nature,
Mm.
just knowing, having like blue jay has been coming up for me a lot. And
Yeah.
that is a reminder for me, the medicine that um, I personally connect with Blue Jay particularly is being a dabbler or an expert. So I know I'm being called forward to be more on an expert level of
Mm.
things than a dabbler of a lot of things. So it's
Mm.
time for me to start narrowing down what I want to really be called forward to be at expert level at.
Mm.
Do I have to do it today? No, there's a lot on
Mm.
my plate today.
Mm.
But I just have that awareness that um, that's what Blue Jays calling me forward to. And also, Blue Jay just in general, if I'm thinking things over in my mind and I kind of need confirmation that I am on the right path, Blue Jays will appear for me as well.
Mm.
So it could be a little animal reminder friend as well. Like if you're just, contemplating if you are on the right path, you'll get a sign like that.
Yeah.
So the signs, the synchronicities, things like that.
Mm. Yeah, and I had two of those situations happen today. I had two different nature walks that I did. One of them was to a sequoia tree that's here, and for Europe that's not normal because it's a Californian tree.
Mm-hmm.
And I was walking to that tree this afternoon, or this morning. This morning it was, and just reflecting on a lot of things on the path and the changes that are moving forward with me today, and the integration that I'm doing. A lot of work that's going on this week for me, and then you have a conversation with a few different people that are taking a look at this tree and they're taking a walk and they're relaxing and stuff and resetting their nervous system. And I then reflect, okay, how far have you got with this practice? Completely building up a new system to help them to relax, to reset their nervous system, to break these things, and to get rid of those things that keep them stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so profound when I think about that, how important that work is on so many different levels. From the cybersecurity world, from the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
social engineering attacks, the kind of stuff like that, but also on the personal level to open up the future for you to be able to not be stuck anymore in these things that happen subliminally or subconsciously. It's really, really being really grateful for having that ability to do that, to work on that, to create that system.
Mm-hmm.
That's big. That's huge. The other thing was in walking in nature, just reflecting and being humble and being grateful for being there in the space and just feeling that energy, listening to the birds sing, smelling the woods,
Mm-hmm.
the different trees when they warm up and the oils start to disperse into the air.
Mm-hmm.
And just being present in that area, you feel that. Being in a forest or woods, for me, it feels different. It feels completely different than being in a city. And you can feel
Oh,
that
for
difference.
sure.
You can feel that
Yeah.
difference in the energy. It's so calming, so good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in the woods every single day.
I try to almost every day. Yeah.
In fact, I have a date with a tree.
Yeah. You got to do that. All
Yeah.
right, so I think we're almost done for this one, right? I don't know how
Yes, I
long
think so.
I don't know how long we were talking, but it seems like it was a long time, and we went through quite a few different things.
We did.
So I think the summarization is convergence of times is moving from one timeline where we integrate the medicine. We integrate that medicine in the pause between that and the next timeline. Then we don't forget, we integrate the stuff from the past, and it enables us to go into the timeline for the present / the future.
Mm-hmm.
And each step that we take in the medicine, integrating the medicine, enables us to take another step on the path that we are meant to be on. And the way that we feel that this is the one that we're meant to be on is it feels right. There's synchronicities. There's medicines that we've integrated that push us forward to take the next steps. And it resonates with our authentic self. And when we take some of the techniques that we teach in the Silver Crow method to do that, the one-to-ones, the retreats and the meetings that we do, it enables people to be able to determine what their path in life is,
Mm-hmm.
without telling them what to believe in, without telling them what to focus on. And I think that's an important message too, that we need to talk about a little bit more, I get the feeling, so that people understand, why do we do these podcasts? Why do we talk about these topics, and how are they very, very real? This is not theoretical stuff. This is real stuff. This is stuff that we live through every day, and everyone else. So,
Yeah. It's to help them get closer to their divinity and their sovereignty.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And being sovereign, being your own sovereign self, your authentic self. I mean, that's a very important goal to have.
Mm-hmm.
Being in touch with
Yes.
yourself, your own
Mm.
divinity, and the connection to everything else. These are things that are very important.
Absolutely.
Okay. With
All
that,
right.
we're going to conclude this one. We hope that you liked this podcast. We would love to hear from you. We've got a Facebook group. We've got multiple ones. We have one for the Sovereign Mind if you're a corporate. We also have the Silver Crow Method Social Network Shaman on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd love to see you guys in joining one of these groups or both, depending on what you're working on and what you want. And just let us know how you like this podcast. Give us some comments. Some comments on other podcasts that you'd like to see, some topics. And maybe we'll talk about them the next time. So with that, thank you very much. I'm Mike Godeker, the owner, founder, creator of the Silver Crow Method, Social Network Shaman, and Silver Crow Apothecary. And I am with
Melanie Ray.
Email us on michael@silvercrowmethod.com and let us know what you think. And we'll see you on one of the Facebook groups.
Okay.
Until then, take care.
Bye.